We thank you very much for tuning in to the No Fruit Podcast. What if dreams you dismissed as random were actually invitations? So today, our guest, Ara, is subconscious transformation specialist who believes our night visions may be more than just imagination. They may be messages waiting to be understood. Let's talk about it right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage, the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
So, our guest today is a certified hypnotherapist and founder of 1010 Hypnosis, specializing in subconscious transformation, spiritual exploration, and breakthrough clarity. He integrates neuroscience, subconscious reprogramming, and faith centered curiosity to help individuals uncover hidden patterns, release internal barriers, and explore profound spiritual questions. And so, we have a special question for our guest today.
Yes.
So, please enlighten us, right? From both a subconscious and faith based perspective. Do you believe God still speaks to us through dreams today? And if so, why do so many people struggle to recognize it?
Okay, that's great. Yes, I do. I definitely do believe God still speaks to us through dreams. Anyone, even a cursory look at the Bible, you'll see that God often spoke to people through dreams in the Bible and through the interpretation of dreams. I think it still goes on today. The problem is today that um, uh, people in my profession who are therapists, counselors, etc., don't really take dreams seriously.
Mm.
So they don't really look into them. They don't really pay attention. And that's a shame because the unconscious mind, which is where our dreams come from,
Mm-hmm.
is full of good information that our conscious minds can't always access. Um, it's my firm belief that the God of our conscious life is also the God of our unconscious life.
Mm-hmm.
That means he's the God of our dream world too, and um, and that means that what goes on in our unconscious life that we see in our dreams can be and often is important. Sometimes it's not, but many times it is. And the interesting thing is that most people, when they remember dreams, um, uh, do give them great importance
Mm.
because there are emotions attached. There are emotions like sadness, there could be terror, there could
Mm.
be happiness, there could be laughing, there could be any number of emotions. But because emotions are attached to it, we as psychologists have to pay attention, and just anyone out there who's listened to this podcast, um, yeah, it really does help to pay attention to what goes on in your dreams because it can help. It may be a message from God, or it may just be a message from your subconscious mind telling you to correct something, to do
Mm.
something better. An example of that I cite in my book, Dreaming God's Way,
Mm-hmm.
is the golfer Jack Nicklaus years ago was playing in a tournament and not doing too well, was having trouble with his swing. And after the play was over that day, he went out on the range and he kept hitting balls and trying to figure out what it was, but he really couldn't. But that night when he slept, he had a dream, and in the dream, a solution suggested
Mm-hmm.
itself, and he remembered that. And the next day, when he went out to play, he put that into play for himself
Mm-hmm.
and did much better. So his his unconscious mind knew what was wrong with his swing,
Mm-hmm.
but his conscious mind didn't. And that can apply to any number of things for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our conscious minds may not know what's wrong with something or may not know about something, but our unconscious minds often do.
Mm. So, as I'm listening to you, especially talking about the Jack Nicholas thing, because I just know I struggle with it myself. Sometimes when I'm in the midst of a situation, I am moving too fast,
Mm,
and so in my mind, because I dream a lot. My wife could tell you I dream a lot. I mean, and very
Yeah.
vivid, and so
Yes.
what happens or what I've noticed in some situations is that I've had to talk to myself and say, Maurice, slow down a little bit, and pay attention because
Hmm.
I may not dream in exactly that situation, but my family members, they talk about dreams and got dream books and all this other type of stuff and talk
Oh
about, hey,
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
these things might mean or whatever it is. And sometimes when you look at that, is when you look at the hidden messages and within the dream, you're like, hey, you know what? Slow down. You're destined for greatness, but pay attention to the, whatever it is. So sometimes I think that
Mhm.
we may not slow down enough in those moments.
Yeah, I think and that's a good way of saying we may not slow down enough to just examine what
Hmm.
the dream was saying. You know, when I was growing up, whenever I had a dream, I was always fascinated with dreams. But my parents would just say, "Ah, it's just a dream, forget it,"
Hmm.
and so that's what I grew up with. But the fascination went on, and later on, I paid much more attention, especially as I was being trained to be a psychologist. Um, so yeah, I think what you said about, hey, slow down and take a look at what's going on. One of there are in the book I talked about, um, there are steps. I offer steps to dream interpretation, but
Hmm.
really the first step I offer is prayer. Pray about it. Pray about
Hmm.
what's going on with you. Pray about what's going on in the stream. Pray for wisdom. But if you do that, it makes you slow down because
Yes, it
now you're
does.
talking to God,
Yes, it
right? You're
does.
Yeah.
talking to God and you're saying, well, Lord, what is it? What's going on here? Help me to understand. And that's always a great first step. So you anticipated the first step perfectly.
I think one of the other steps that Maurice kind of hinted at was writing things down.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
oftentimes Maurice dreams vividly and he can recall
Yeah.
step by step, moment by moment, what happened throughout the night in this dream or
Excellent.
various
Yes.
dreams. But someone
Hmm.
had once told him that he needs to write these things down because
Hmm.
years later he will say, "Oh, I've seen this before. I think I've seen it in a
Hmm.
dream." So they wanted him to be able to reference
Hmm.
back to the explicit detail that he may have had years
Right.
ago of the dream to when it
Hmm.
kind of happens and it comes out, but it may
Hmm.
only be a piece of it.
Hmm.
So then he can kind of compare that back and forth. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of writing things down in the dream.
Hmm. Well, absolutely. First of all, it's unlikely you'll be able to, and Maurice, you're probably an exception, but most people, once they wake up, 30 seconds after they wake up, they don't remember the dream,
That's
even though
me.
they just had it. Yes, yes. And that's most of us, unless unless we really make an effort to remember and to write things down. And so yes, that's what I started doing years and years ago. I started writing down my dreams and then trying to work with that and figure out what was going on. And people will say to me, I don't remember my dreams, or they'll deny that they dream altogether, but everybody
Hmm.
dreams. And uh, and if you want to remember your dreams, it's really easy. As you're going to sleep the night before, just all you need to do is say to yourself over and over, "I'm going to remember my dreams. I am going to remember my dreams. Son. I will remember my dreams," and most likely it will happen.
Hmm.
Um, and most likely, the dream you remember will be the dream that you have right before you wake up.
Hmm.
Most of us will be dreaming right when we wake up. Um, so yes, it's very important to write these things down. Look, if you don't want to write it down, you can. One of the things I tried was I put on the record function on my phone, and I
Hmm.
just spoke my dream into my phone.
Hmm.
Okay, and that works just fine, except that you have to make sure that you're awake enough to do that when you
Yeah.
speak clearly, because sometimes when I did that, when I listened back to it, I couldn't understand what I myself was saying, which
Mhm.
was not a good thing. Um, but yes, recording dreams is important, and keeping the records, because what
Hmm.
you said is so true, and it's one of the things that in Dreaming God's Way, my book, one of the things that I deal with is that we often will dream of things that we have seen in other dreams,
Hmm.
or people that we've seen in other dreams, but we don't know them in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are some people in my own dream life. There's one guy who every once in a while will walk into a restaurant, we'll sit down together, and we'll just sit down and talk. Uh, he's uh, in my dreams, he's my really good friend, my confidant.
Mm-hmm.
In life, I don't know him in my waking life. I don't know who he is,
Mm-hmm.
but in my dreams, I know exactly who he is.
Mm. And recently is I've been I didn't coin the phrase, but I say this deja vu mentality
Mm,
because I seem like again like I've been there, and so I'm gonna give you my a deja vu vibe where I think really where God was showing me where we were going.
great.
Excuse me, when we first got together, um, I was like, hey, we're gonna get married, all that. Like you kind of can see it and feel it. And then we had gotten married 3 years later. And then not too long after that, I had a dream about us walking into this house, right? And the lights were shining, the sun was bright, or whatever it was. And so that might have been maybe year one, early year two of us being married. About year 5 to 6, when we moved to another home, we walked into this house. And as soon as we walked in this house, we opened up the door and the light just was all over the place. The steps, I could see my wife standing on the step where she's speaking to me, and I think that's where God kind of showed us exactly like, hey, this is where I'm going to put your family in this moment.
Mm,
And so that's why I thought it was really fascinating in speaking with you because I think that's where God,
mhm.
just for myself, has shown himself in my life and within my dreams to say, hey, you know what? This is where you're going to be. This is where you're going to raise you and your family, your kids, all those type of things. Because
Yes.
it was bright as day. It was clear as day. So I think that's something that really uh, resonated with me throughout the years of just how God, as you stated, He's both subconscious and conscious space, and,
Mhm.
and so and I think that's my example that I would like to share with you. That hey, like I believe exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great example, by the way, of what we call precognitive dreaming,
Hmm.
dreaming that happens before the actual event acts, and it is a real thing. It's been
Hmm.
documented throughout history. As a matter of fact, you may know this, but President Abraham Lincoln dreamed about his own death
Hmm.
Mm.
some weeks before it happened, and that I recount that dream in my book, Dreaming God's Way. He dreamed about it, and it came to be. And fortunately, he told it to somebody, and whoever it was recorded it. So we now have the recording of that dream
Hmm.
from Abraham Lincoln. Um, but yes, so precognitive dreaming is a real thing, and it's people get all like, oh well, that's like a psychic thing, and I guess in a way it is, but really, it again, it's a gift from God. It
Hmm.
really is a gift from God. There's a reason we're having these dreams, and for and a lot of you have to be careful because there are a lot of people who claim to have precognitive dreams,
Hmm.
but and maybe their dream is kind of similar to something that happened. But when there are details that you
Hmm.
can't miss in your dream and you see them in real life, um, that's really a sign. And the other thing is that uh, God may be telling us something, but sometimes he doesn't tell us straight out.
Right.
Sometimes he'll tell us in the form of symbols and
Hmm.
symbolism. The key to interpreting dreams, most people realize, is the symbols in those dreams, and that's going all the way back to Carl Jung and even Freud before him. It's all about symbols,
Hmm.
and but the thing about a symbol is a symbol to me may not mean the same as a symbol to you.
Right. Hmm.
And that's why, any dream book that tells you this symbol always means X, Y, or Z
Right.
is just not right
Right.
because
Hmm.
they haven't interviewed you and they don't know what it means to you. Uh, for example, the symbol of the cross. Well, to we who are Christians, it means Jesus, or it might symbolize the church. But somebody in the medical field, it might symbolize the Red Cross, or to somebody, but to a guy who's a cross country truck driver, it may symbolize a crossroads,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? That's what it might mean to him. So one of the things to look at is the symbols that appear in your dreams, and really say to yourself, well, what does that symbol mean to me?
Hmm.
Whenever patients report their dreams to me and they talk about symbols, I'll say, well, what does that mean to you? I won't
Hmm.
assume that it means the same thing as it does to me, because chances are it doesn't.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's really, so symbols are the key, but symbols are intensely personal,
Hmm.
and so you have to look at what it means to you, not what it means to the world at large.
And I think that's important. Like Maurice is saying, he has dreams, and sometimes they become a deja vu moment where they
Hmm.
actually happen. But then there's things that
Hmm.
we dream about or almost have nightmares about that don't actually happen.
Yeah.
So, Maurice has had dreams where he's, been murdered or, been shot. Or people always say the infamous, when I'm falling asleep, I always dream that I'm falling off of a cliff.
Right.
So everyone has those falling dreams. So
Hmm.
I think that's the difference of understanding what, and I think if you write it down, you'll begin to understand what makes sense
Hmm.
on what happens and why you're having those dreams, and learning the difference between a happy dream and then something that might
Right.
not be so happy, where it's a little bit more tragic, and
Yeah.
being able to talk to someone like you, to help them understand that better.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, and falling is one of those things that gets, oh, falling always means this, it always
Mm-hmm.
refers to sexuality, or always refers to, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, it really doesn't. It means sometimes it's just falling, even Freud, who thought that dreams always meant something related to
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, so a cigar in a dream would have a certain meaning
Yes.
in terms of sexuality. But even he once said, no, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Hmm.
All right. It doesn't mean what the symbol means to you. So you have to be real careful of that. But I've said this before, I'll say it again, the best interpreter of any dream is the person who has it.
Hmm.
But yes, you do have to pay attention. And, and when you write it down and or record it, what you do then is you hold it up to what's going on in your life. How does this relate to what's going on in my life right now? Um, and so one of the dreams I'm gonna, if I can, I'm gonna read you a short dream that that's from my book, and it's from a woman who was a patient of mine,
Mm.
and she was a middle-aged patient. Her parents had divorced during her adolescence, and she had experienced a traumatic divorce. She had just experienced a traumatic divorce, so she has this dream. She says, "I'm walking down at twilight." Down a long row of trees toward a cheerful, brightly lit house at the end of a country lane. As I draw near, I can hear children playing, and through a large picture window, I can see a loving couple doing ordinary things,
Mhm.
conversing, setting the table, or embracing. I press my face to the window and watch their happiness with great longing, but I am invisible to them and must leave before the night falls. And that was just such a sad dream for
Mm-hmm.
her. Um,
Mm.
and she was feeling depressed then, but it was so illustrate. We look at that, and it was so illustrative of what she had lost
Yeah.
in her life. I said, "Well, how does this stack up with what's going on in your life?" And she said, this is what I lost. This is what I lost as a child when my father left the home, and this is what I lost when my husband left the home, and the great longing, and she feels shut out. She feels like she can't get in. But that gave us the entree to be able to develop some good therapies
Mm.
and help for her. And eventually, the happy end of that story is eventually she did find someone
Nice.
who didn't leave, and and who she just loved, and who loved her, and they're still happily married. So
Oh,
Mm.
great.
it's a wonderful thing. But yes, but the dream really told the story
Mm.
and really helped her along to be able to say, here's what's going on with me,
So I have a
not just
question.
I feel sad.
Oh, and I understand that. I guess my question is in a situation in your illustration. Sometimes we have this picture perfect situation that we want to achieve, we want to get to whatever it
Mhm.
is, and we beat ourselves up because we can't get to that level. For whatever reason, and sometimes we don't deal with some of our challenges, whether it's childhood traumas or whatever the situation might be. And sometimes even in that type of dream, we're beating ourselves up, maybe unnecessarily or whatever it is, and we kind of get scared to even express that because we don't want to seem weird or whatever it is. So how do we deal with that? Especially if we don't want to be labeled, a crybaby or whatever it is. So how do we get over something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, one way we get over something like that is by being honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're beating yourself up, guilt gets a bad rep. Therapists don't want people to feel guilty, but no, sometimes guilt is appropriate. So if I'm feeling guilty about something, I should feel
Yeah.
guilty about that. Okay. And if I'm beating myself up about it, all right. Yeah, yes, I don't want you to beat yourself up about something, but I do want you to realize your guilt. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what God wants from us. He doesn't say, go beat, when you sin, go beat yourself up about it. He
Mm-hmm.
says, when you sin, seek forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And once you seek forgiveness, then you turn from your way, you turn from that sinful way. So it's a matter of being honest and a matter of listening to what God is giving you. God is nowhere in Scripture does God say, "Go beat yourself up about this." It's just not there.
And I'm listening to you talk about being honest, and even
Hmm.
forgiving. Sometimes in
Yeah.
culture, we really don't know what that means.
Hmm.
And people call it being real or whatever it is, but that's not always the case. It's not always mutually, they don't always go together. And so how just from a cultural perspective, being we'll just say from American culture, we can't speak across seas, but how do we become more honest and real or even forgiving, of ourselves because it seems like, we're always pitting ourselves up against somebody else and we feel less than. We always feel like we're being beaten down
Mm.
and that we don't meet that mark. So how do we even forgive ourselves in that space?
Okay. So forgiving is like most of the people who come to me are coming to me because they have a problem forgiving somebody
Mm-hmm.
for something. They might have a problem forgiving themselves, but usually it's because it's somebody else that they have a problem with forgiving. But what you said, there's wisdom there because uh, forgiving in the biblical sense starts with looking at ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and saying, so when I'm working with somebody on forgiveness, one of the first things I ask them is, all right, so this person did these awful things to you, and we're going to work on forgiving him. But what have you done to people that you need to be forgiven for? And
Mm-hmm.
that really throws them because they're in the position of, no, I've been wrong. They owe me something. All of a sudden, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. What have you done that you owe somebody for because you did this to them?
Mm-hmm.
And once you get into that humble position, then you can then that's being honest. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know, yeah, that's why Jesus said, hey, I want you to forgive others just as I've forgiven you, just as I've gotten forgiveness for you, you need to forgive others. That's why he said that. And that's the key. That's the key. So look at yourself. What do I need to be forgiven for? It puts you in a humble position. And then you're not a judge anymore. You're just a person, you have this I always call it a 70-pound knapsack of rocks that you're carrying around on your back. That's your grudge that you're holding, right?
Mm,
And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, when are you going to put it down? Because
yeah.
the only person being hurt is you, not the person who did this to you. You're hurting yourself. I always say it's like hugging a porcupine. The tighter you hold on, the more it hurts.
That's nice. That's nice. I mean, so I'm sorry, I know we're going over our time, but you keep bringing out these words, right? That we sometimes we overlook, and that other word is humble. Like you keep bringing out these
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
because sometimes there are some things that we just don't deal with, and
mhm,
whether it's from again in our dreams, we have this high, lofty, expectations, and we think that we can get to these places or whatever else. But sometimes we also need to understand we need to be humble in those situations to even achieve those things,
yeah,
and even just be
yeah.
humble in how we interact, with one another, And so, can you just close this out real quick? Give us your definition of humble, and then humbly give us where they might be able to find your information.
Okay. Well, that's going to be tough. All right, well, let me try. So humble. One of the things, whenever I teach um, Bible studies, one of the things I like to say most is God hates arrogance. He hates it when people are arrogant. And it's throughout scripture. He hates arrogance. So being humble is the opposite of being arrogant. Arrogant is you're all full of yourself. Hey, I can do this on my own. I don't need any help. I'm the best. I'm the
Mm,
number one. That's arrogance. Okay. And and being humble is, hey, I'm just another child of God. I'm just another sinner, just like all of you. And I'm no better, no worse than any of you. And so I am not in a position to judge you. Just judge not, lest ye be judged. That's what that means. I'm not in
mhm,
a position to judge you spiritually. So being humble means acknowledging all that and then living your life as if that's true.
mhm.
Right. So as to the book, Dreaming God's Way, totally different subject, but Dreaming God's Way is available. It's available on all the usual online sources, so
Mm,
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you want to get it for a little less, you can go on Thrift Books. It's there, but it's there all of the. It's even on iTunes. It's
mhm,
everywhere. So it's Dreaming God's Way. Just look for it. It gives you a lot. It goes into more depth than we've had a chance to do here
mhm,
about these various kinds of dreams, but it also gives you kind of steps toward interpreting your own dreams that will focus on what things really mean to you and should help you to extract the meanings and the wisdom
mhm.
that your dreams contain.
Nice, nice.
Great. So, Ara, thank you so much for bringing so much depth and understanding, discernment to this topic. We have truly, truly enjoyed this conversation. And like Marie said, we could certainly
That's
go on. I
fine.
still have so many questions roaming through
Yeah,
my mind. We'll have to email you some more of these
no
questions. So,
problem. You can do
uh,
that. Yes.
thank you, thank you. But one thing we want to ask as we leave, since we're talking about dreams,
Mhm.
if you had a dream, if you could sing a duet with anyone in the world, living or deceased, Ara, who would you sing
Mhm.
that duet with?
Oh boy, see now I thought about this question just so everybody knows. They warned me they would ask this question, and I would you would think, oh, I want to sing a duet with somebody, a great singer like Pavarotti, or
Mm,
some really wonderful singer like that. But um, I'm a guitar player, not a singer, and it probably wouldn't go well. Um, so I'd rather sing with somebody who, I grew up playing in rock and roll bands, so I'd
mm.
just like to sing with some of my idol, like a Steven Tyler or
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like a Paul McCartney or somebody like that,
nice.
Wonderful.
or Lionel Richie even. Yeah, he's got a great voice. I love his voice.
Yes.
Um, I'd just love to sing let me sing harmonies or background to
Mm-hmm.
them. That would be just fine with me.
Nice. That's nice. Good options. Good options.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. It really has.
Sure, no problem. And of course, we thank y'all very much for listening to the No Fruit Podcast. But one thing that I would like for y'all to do, um, I will for you before you go to sleep, ask yourself a bold question. Invite clarity. And if you wake up remembering something, write it down. Don't ignore what might be instruction from your Lord and Savior. We thank you very much for listening today.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow.